Amu Haji, an Iranian hermit dubbed the dirtiest man in the world, avoided bathing for nearly 60 years because he believed cleanliness would make him sick. He lived this way into his 90s, smoking animal dung, eating roadkill, sleeping on the ground, and rarely interacting with others. Then in 2022, villagers finally convinced him to bathe for the first time in decades. Just a few weeks afterward, Haji fell severely ill and died at age 94. Matthew Day Merritt was born without legs and learned to walk on his hands from early childhood. As a young boy, his small size and unusual movements led filmmakers to place him inside the E.T. suit for the movie, where his hand walking gave the alien its unsettling, otherworldly motion. In October of 2018, 53-year-old Allison Gibson became trapped in her own bathtub after sitting down to bathe and realizing she could no longer reach the grab bar she would normally pull herself up with. Alone in her home, she remained stuck for 5 days, surviving without food by drinking water directly from the tap. As time passed, she weakened and struggled with exhaustion, alternating the water between hot and cold to stay conscious and hydrated. From October 15th to the 19th, no one noticed she was missing until a mail carrier saw her mail piling up and alerted neighbors. Police were called and she was finally rescued, having narrowly avoided death from dehydration, hypothermia, or exhaustion after nearly a week immobilized in her own bathtub. Here's some insanely rare footage of a siphonophore, a deep-sea colony that looks more like an alien or sea creature than anything from Earth. Even though they appear to be a single creature, they're actually colonies made up of thousands of tiny bodies called zooids, each assigned a specific role like feeding, reproduction, or movement. Some species can grow longer than a blue whale, trailing glowing tentacles through the dark to sting and capture prey. Because they're extremely delicate and live thousands of feet below the surface, clear footage of siphonophores in their natural environment is rarely captured. Here's some footage of the only volcano in the world famous for its blue lava, Indonesia's Kawah Ijen. What you're seeing isn't actually blue molten rock, but sulfuric gas is igniting as they escape the crater, creating electric blue flames that can flow down the slope like liquid fire at night. The effect is only visible in darkness, which is why most clips are filmed after sunset. Miners still descend into the crater through toxic fumes to collect sulfur, working inside one of the most extreme volcanic environments on Earth. This is the facial reconstruction created from a severed human head found in an Illinois park in 1993, the only clue investigators had for nearly 3 decades. The victim remained unidentified until 2022, when DNA genealogy revealed she was Susan Lund, who disappeared on Christmas Eve in 1992 after walking to a nearby store. Despite finally learning her name almost 30 years later, the rest of her body was never recovered. No suspect was ever charged, and her murder remains unsolved. This is a decorative tower filled with thousands of shaved human jawbone fragments, removed from patients during cosmetic jaw reduction surgeries in South Korea. The display came from a Seoul plastic surgery clinic, where the surgeon stacked discarded pieces of patients' faces into stacked columns to represent how many operations he had performed. The towers sparked public backlash and were later removed after authorities fined the clinic for violating medical waste laws requiring human remains to be incinerated. The case became a disturbing symbol of how normalized extreme facial alteration has become in South Korea, to the point that many patients have even reported being questioned at border control because their faces no longer match their passport photos. In November of 2022, 7-year-old Athena Strand was struck by a FedEx delivery van while playing in her Texas driveway, but she survived the impact with only minor injuries. But instead of calling for help, the driver, 31-year-old Tanner Lynn Horner, panicked after Athena said she was going to tell her father, took her inside his van, and murdered her. Court documents state he first tried to break her neck, and when that failed, strangled her with his bare hands while she was still alive. He then drove around for hours and dumped her body near the Trinity River, returning to work as if nothing had happened. Athena's disappearance sparked a massive search, and her body was found 2 days later after Horner confessed and led police to the location. He was charged with capital murder and kidnapping, with prosecutors seeking the harshest possible sentence. In November of 1998, 48-year-old Harold Brady used a church meeting to gain the trust of Chandel Maycock and her 5-year-old daughter Quatisha before abducting them in Florida. He first drove Chandel to an isolated sugar field, wrapped his hands around her throat, and strangled her until her body went limp. Believing she was dead, he left her lying alone in the field, but she later woke up severely injured and barely survived after flagging down a passing driver. Brady then took Quatisha deep into the Everglades and abandoned her alive near a canal locals refer to as Alligator Alley. Prosecutors say he left her there deliberately, believing the child could identify him. The 5-year-old was left alone in the dark wetlands, surrounded by predators, unable to escape or call for help. 2 days later, her body was recovered from the canal, with investigators concluding she was torn apart by alligators. Brady was convicted and sentenced to life in prison, but decades later, changes to Florida's death penalty laws reopened his case. More than 25 years after the crime, prosecutors are now seeking his execution. During King Leopold II's personal rule over the Congo Free State, forced labor and terror were used to extract rubber for profit. When workers failed to meet rubber quotas, punishment was systematic and brutal, with hands or entire limbs cut off as a warning. Soldiers often mutilated or killed the workers' wives and children as well, using family terror to force compliance from entire families. The regime led to the deaths of millions through execution, starvation, disease, and torture, making it one of the most horrific colonial atrocities in history. In 2004, a massive fire broke out at the Yakua Bolaños supermarket in Paraguay during a busy shopping day. As smoke and flames spread, multiple exits were reportedly locked to prevent customers from fleeing with unpaid merchandise, trapping hundreds of people inside. The fire ended up killing more than 400 people, many from smoke inhalation while pressed against sealed doors. Investigators later confirmed severe safety violations, and several owners and employees were convicted, making it one of the deadliest fires in history and a stark example of profit being prioritized over human life.
Where are you? I probably don't have much time left to tell my mom that I love her if I die.
That was the voice of 16-year-old Kyle Plush, heard in his final moments as he slowly died alone in his family's minivan. In April of 2018, Kyle became trapped in a Honda Odyssey in his high school parking lot when the power-folding third-row seat suddenly collapsed, folding forward and pinning him upside down by the chest, neck, and head. The position left him inverted, compressing his lungs and restricting blood flow. For roughly 30 minutes, Kyle called 911 multiple times, calmly but increasingly distressed, telling dispatchers he was trapped and struggling to breathe.
Hello, Cincinnati 911 is the address of the emergency. Cincinnati 911. The Seven Hills what parking lot?
As the pressure worsened, his voice grew weaker and more labored.
Where are you? I probably don't have much time left to tell my mom that I love her if I die. This is not a joke. This is not a joke. I'm trapped inside my gold Honda Odyssey van in the Southport parking lot of Seven Hills Theft. Send officers immediately. I'm almost dead.
His calls were repeatedly misclassified as accidental butt dials, and officers sent to search for him checked the wrong area before leaving. Kyle remained trapped for hours, unable to move, eventually losing consciousness and dying from positional asphyxia. He was later found by his parents, still wedged beneath the folded seat. His death was ruled accidental, but the case exposed serious failures in emergency response and raised lasting concerns about vehicle seat designs and how narrowly Kyle missed being rescued. In February of 2025, 22-year-old Daniel Waterman was left comatose after a violent interstate crash in Florida, leaving him with severe head and spinal injuries. After briefly regaining consciousness months later, he told investigators the crash was intentional, alleging that his pregnant girlfriend, 24-year-old Leah Mumby, deliberately drove the car into a tree during an argument, accelerating as he tried to escape and telling him, "I don't care what happens, you'll get what you deserve." Mumby initially said she did not remember what happened before the crash. Waterby died from his injuries in October of 2025, and prosecutors later upgraded her charges to vehicular homicide. In 1962, the United States detonated a nuclear warhead in space during the Starfish Prime test, exploding it about 250 miles above Earth. The blast was far more destructive than expected, knocking out or damaging multiple satellites, creating artificial radiation belts that lingered for years, and causing electrical failures as far away as Hawaii. The test proved that nuclear explosions in space were unpredictable and capable of long-term damage to both technology and Earth's near-space environment, effectively ending any further attempts once scientists realized the harm could not be controlled. In December of 2019, Anthony Topp murdered his wife Megan and their 3 young children along with the family dog inside their home in Celebration, Florida. Autopsies showed the victims were restrained, beaten, and suffocated, with evidence indicating the children were killed first. Topp then remained in the house for weeks as the bodies decomposed, sleeping nearby and conducting normal activities while masking the smells with air fresheners. When police entered the home a few weeks later, they found all 5 bodies in various stages of decomposition. Topp later admitted responsibility, though he gave conflicting accounts and attempted to blame his wife. In 2023, he was convicted of 4 counts of first-degree murder and animal cruelty and sentenced to life in prison without parole. In 2012, a homeless man named Ronald Papo was savagely attacked beneath a Miami overpass in an assault caught on camera lasting 18 minutes. The attacker, Rudy Eugene, beat him unconscious and chewed away most of his face, including an eyeball, leaving Papo permanently disfigured and blind. Police arrived during the attack and fatally shot Eugene when he ignored commands and continued biting his victim. Papo survived after extensive surgeries but was left permanently disfigured. Despite early claims of drug-induced madness, toxicology reports failed to identify any substance that could fully explain the horrific attack.